games coming down and miss field goals. Another team that a lot of people really like is Mississippi State. They're the other undefeated left in the nation. And they, at SEC time this year, Ole Miss and Mississippi State both played these cupcake teams from 1AA, the FCS, whichever you like to call it. They got to blow out Tennessee Martin and keep their undefeated streak going. But now they've got to get ready and play Alabama and come back to reality within the playoff streak. So those are the two teams that I know that a lot of people still like just because of their record. They're obviously going to be within that top four in some semblance because they're undefeated.
Looking at, in the Big Ten, it seemed I still feel this way that if there was a team to make it to the Final Four from the Big Ten, it had to be Michigan State with one loss. Do you feel that way, or do you feel Ohio State or Nebraska, if one of those teams wins out, that they could make it into that top four?
After watching the Ohio State-Michigan State game last night, I think Ohio State not only I think they'll end up running the rest of the table, I think they actually will sneak into the Final Four. They have found this level of they're playing right now the way that everyone expected them to play with Braxton Miller at the beginning of the season. So I do like Ohio State. They found a way to win a really tough ball game last night in East Lansing. They have Minnesota. They're coming up here on Saturday. I think it's Saturday morning. I'm surprised that game hasn't been flexed to a night game because that's pretty big matchup for the Big Ten. But as far as I know, it's going to be a morning game. It's going to be a big crowd there at TCF Bank Stadium. But I think Ohio State wins that game. They'll wrap the season up with Michigan in a couple weeks after that, and then if all goes well, they'll be playing for the Big Ten title. I think Ohio State is really the better team now. They've really proven that by beating a good team in Michigan State. Nebraska is still in that mix, but I think Nebraska is kind of on the outside looking in. I think their resume is not as strong as Ohio State. Ohio State, everybody says that the Virginia Tech loss hurts, but and that Michigan State has a little more credibility losing to an Oregon, which I do agree with that in some semblance. I think Oregon's the best team in the country, even with their one loss, personally. So, but I think Ohio State will end up finding a way to sneak in there, along with a couple other teams. So,
you live in Big Ten country as well as I do.
Yeah.
And one thing that bugs me is it almost feels like there's a resistance to playing night games in the Big Ten. I mean, they didn't play them for so many years. I mean, Michigan, Ohio State have never played a night game. For what reason, it's beyond me. But it just, you want to be on in prime time. Nobody wants to get up for 11 o'clock game. Most people are probably hungover from the night before. And, it's just kind of an old man's conference. And, looking at this conference, what do you think it is about the resistance to play night games? I mean, you should be wanting to have night games every week, prime time games, and it just feels like you like Nebraska, Wisconsin, that should be a night game this week. Ohio State, Minnesota, that should also be a night game. What do you think it is about this resistance?
I think you hit it pretty much on the head when you said it's an old man conference, and they're very obviously deep rooted in tradition within college football history, but at the same time it's kind of contradictory because it's like, all right, well, we're the Big Ten, and we've been around for well over 100 years, and we like our football in the daytime, but yet you expand and get all these extra teams in, and you go as far out as New Jersey and Maryland to grab these extra teams. It's like, well, they're not really Big Ten teams. I still don't view them as Big Ten teams, but the Big Ten Network wanted to grab that revenue shares and viewership out in the New York area and then Washington D.C. area. So it's like, oh, we'll make adjustments for that, but we won't adjust to, like you said, the modern the modern popularity of a 7 o'clock night game, in the Central Time or so forth. So I'm not sure why that is exactly. I'm not sure why that would matter so much. Like you said, night games, everyone wants to see the night game. Everyone wants to wait for that game at night, that big-time marquee game. And I'm not sure what exactly is the cause of that resistance. But I guess the Pac-12 and Big 12 have something to do with that too, just on simple time zones. I mean, it's not like you're not going to see Pac-12 teams play at 9 a.m. to accommodate the 11 o'clock Central, 12 o'clock Eastern time slot. So I guess the Big Ten is comfortable keeping their daytime slots so that, we can watch Oregon and Cal play at, a reasonable hour here, and they won't have to play games, early in the morning or late at night,
As far as Minnesota goes,
mm-hmm.
is there really, how much of a following is there of Minnesota football? Do people really care? Or even, this is a huge year. Beating Michigan, blowing the doors off of Iowa. You got 2 trophy games. That hasn't happened, since 67? Is there buzz in Minnesota over the Jerry kills?
There's a definite buzz here in this. Football, since I've been here 7 years, and I was a Gopher season ticket holder the second year of the new stadium opened. It's fair weather. The fans are pretty realistic when it comes to the Gophers. They won't get too high or too low with this team, but there's been a buzz this season. They've hung around and beat some decent teams. And I said, the Iowa win was huge. I was on Minnesota last week at a pick'em, and I thought they should have been favored by at least 5-6 points. And obviously, it should have been a lot more than that based on the end result. But Minnesota, like I said, big tradition here, and they want to beat those Michigan teams. They chant, "Who hates Iowa? We hate Iowa," at any game, whether Iowa's playing or not. So that was a big win for the fan base and for the boosters and the alumni. So there's definitely a buzz here. And now with Ohio State coming in, it's going to be senior day, and Gopher fans believe that this team can really, try and make a shot at a New Year's Day Bowl or even, possibly getting to Indianapolis for the Big Ten title game. So there's a buzz. And I'm not sure if it's going to reach the ultimate point of them actually making a big bowl game. But they are in bowl contention, and people are excited. And it's going to. Jerry Kill's really built something here that they could move forward with, and possibly become a title contender, and maybe even a, dare I say, national title contender if they can recruit well in the next few years.
What's more surprising? That Jerry Kill has not had a health episode yet this season, or that they are a legit contender in the Big Ten Western Division?
I would say that they are a legit contender. That's a little more shocking. I think most of Coach Kill's health issues, I know he's come out and said that a lot of it was with his sleeping habits and his eating and stuff. And a lot of things could, being an epileptic, there's a lot of things that he has to watch out for. And stress is another thing. Stress brings on seizures. And I was at the game, unfortunately, where he collapsed against New Mexico State. The Gophers actually had a chance to win this ball game, and he went down, and you could hear a pin drop in that place. It was a very scary moment. And even though I knew he had his moments of with seizures, it seemed the way he collapsed was that he had a heart attack. And the reason I say that too is because he was yelling at the officials up and down the field all day. There were a lot of bad calls in that game. So I think there's a small correlation to the fact that the Gophers are playing well and winning. That might be why he hasn't had such an extreme health episode. But overall, I did not expect this Gopher team to look anywhere as decent as they do now. But they've really put together something special. Mitch Leidner, he's not the most talented quarterback. We're not going to put him in a conversation with Marcus Mariota and the Braxton Millers and the Jameis Winstons of the world. But he's a tough guy. This guy played through a sprained knee, some ankle issues. He had back issues. He's been playing hurt for pretty much the majority of the season. But he still found a way to get on the field. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. His favorite target, Max Williams, is definitely going to be an NFL star at some point. This guy looks like a young Jimmy Graham out there. So he stays healthy, and he's I'm gonna say a sophomore. He's got another year, so I don't know if he's NFL ready this draft, but maybe the next draft he could be a first round guy. So there's some talent there. There's really some talent with the Gophers.
I definitely think that this is the most talked about in Minnesota has been on a talk show, podcast, you name it, that isn't paid for by the university itself in quite some time.
Yeah, I would agree with that. More talk on this here than about as much talk as would be on local radio up here right now. So
yeah. The Nebraska-Minnesota game, that's going to be a big one. I do have, Tommy Armstrong's not playing great, but that Minnesota game for Nebraska has been a tough one when they had Taylor Martinez as quarterback. I feel a little bit more confident with Tommy Armstrong playing that game than Taylor Martinez, but it's not going to – I'm not wildly confident in that one because, and speaking of Jerry Kill, I'm surprised more coaches don't have – this isn't just, a Jerry Kill thing, but he's kind of – he goes after officials. He's loud, he's really high-strung, but he's not the only coach like that. I mean, you look at Stoops, you look at Bo Pelini. I guess Urban Meyer had his episode at Florida. I'm surprised there's not more health episodes with these coaches with how much they scream. They don't eat healthy. It just seems like a recipe for disaster health-wise. And you don't hear about very many. There's like two that I've heard of, nationally the last couple of years.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think a lot of these guys, a lot of coaches, you think about coaches, 30, 40 years ago, these guys, they were old athletes who just kind of let themselves go and weren't always in the best of shape and, looked like they were eating sandwiches at halftime. But nowadays, you look at NFL coaches and college coaches, these guys look like they're in shape enough, especially the ex-players. You look at Pat Fitzgerald at Northwestern. This guy looks like he's ready to get on the field, half the time. I think that might have a lot to do with why you don't hear about these guys, having too many health issues. They kind of seem to try and take care of themselves, but yeah, they definitely, like any coach in any sport, you're gonna lose your marbles sometimes on the sidelines and on the bench. But no, Jerry Kill's a fantastic coach. I've kind of tailed him for quite a while. He was coaching at Southern Illinois and Northern Illinois back when I lived in Chicago. I'm a big Northern Illinois fan, so he did some really good things with that program in a couple of years, and then came up here and has done wonders with the program here now. So he's a really nice guy. I've talked to players who have were under his guidance, and they all have nothing but great things to say about Coach Hill.
If you were a betting man, please do the drum solo for me. If you're a betting man, who would you say is in the Final Four, and who matches up in the national championship?
Let's see. Final Four. I think the Final Four teams will be Oregon, Florida State, Alabama, and Ohio State. I think Alabama. I'm already looking at playing Alabama this weekend against Mississippi State. Their favorite, 6.5, 7 points. I think Alabama, coming off of that huge win in Death Valley this weekend against LSU, I think they're going to be really fired up. They know that they have an outside chance to get back in this. Their name is truly in the hat of the conversation, and I think they take care of business against a Mississippi State team that's just not quite ready for prime time. This is a great team, but I think the experience of Nick Saban and company will prevail. So I think they make that spot. Where we talked about Ohio State, I think that they have the with that marquee win over Michigan State, I think they can sneak in there. Oregon, I don't see anyone stopping Oregon. They had a potential letdown spot yesterday against Utah, and they just destroyed the Utes. They have a week off now. They get ready to go play Colorado for Senior Day, which is always going to be a big game. It's Mariota's last home game. And then they go up to Corvallis for the Civil War. That looks like it's going to be a big win. They'll go to Santa Clara for the Pac-12 game. The title game, I'm guessing they'll play possibly, I guess it'd be Arizona State. That should be a win as well. And then I'm not sure who would play who